Hey, what's up, my dudes? We got the James Stewart compound 2019. You know what it is. So, this is made by Nick DeLeon, and as Wyndham would say, it's really, 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 really good. So, it must be good. Let's come in here and check it out. Okay, so this is the free ride version. We're going to check out the national track and then the two supercross tracks. So, yeah, man, always a good ass time when you get a new supercross. I meant to say James Stewart. Sorry, just woke up, boys. Bear with me a little bit. It's always good whenever you get a new James Stewart compound in any game because they seem to just, there's something about the JS7 Stewart compounds in these motocross games. I don't know. It first kind of started with Alive, and everybody loved it in Alive, right? And then it kind of went on to, like, they made a version of it in MX Simulator, like 2015. That's one of the best tracks in that game, like custom track wise. And then there was an older one on Reflex as well, and there's a couple videos of it out there. I don't know whatever happened to that track. I don't know. I've heard little stories about it like being taken down because it was too similar to another track. I don't know what the hell, but anyways, Reflex on PC used to have a James Stewart replica compound like this before, but you haven't been able to download it in like 5-6 years. So either way, here's another one right here. Nick DeLeon, man. Yeah, he's definitely popping off. Him and Dark Slides and those sort of dudes, they're really the only people that's sticking around Reflex that much anymore. Oh, thought I was going to pop off right there. So, yeah, either way. So let's kind of get right down into the nut cutting here, shall we? Basically, it's hard to hate on a James Stewart compound. It really is. But let me just say, even though this is a really badass track and I do like it, and a lot of the replication of it is done really well, it's not to say that it's just perfect. You know what I'm saying? It's not to say that about it, because I don't think that it's like, oh my God, totally just the most perfect that somebody could have made a James Stewart compound in Reflex. It's not really to that level. It's certainly, I don't know. I mean, I feel like there was quite a bit of work put in, but I also feel like there could have been more work put into it. You know what I mean? So, like with the national track specifically, you can tell he really tried to like add some roughness in there and give it a little bit of that skill gap, right? But the roughness almost kind of feels like it's kind of bizarre. Like you'll just go from this perfectly flat, and then all of a sudden you've got like these little choppy roughness bumps everywhere. I don't know if he captures the sand loamy vibe of what the James Stewart Compound National part of the track would actually be like in real life. It's almost like, I don't know how to explain it exactly. And the roughness feels okay in some areas, but other areas just feels kind of a little bit like out of place, a little bit misplaced. Sometimes like roughness can kind of feel like it doesn't really meld into the track. It's kind of like you just got a track and then you got this random roughness in these areas. It can kind of get that vibe a little bit, But, I mean, I get why he tried to kind of throw it in like that, because he's trying to make some skill gap to where you can't just go, super wide open around the entire track. But other than that, as far as the national track, I mean, the replication, the layout, all that kind of stuff is done very well, like as far as where you're going on the track. You guys know this whole section, and if you've rode on like the MX Simulator replica version, the Alive replica version, I think the Alive one actually goes the other way. I don't know. I get confused as shit because there's like 10,000 different ways that they've went on the Stewart compound in these video games. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, kind of cool how he's got that roughness going up, that some of these single jumps and stuff like that. Now, some of the jumps are going to be a lot smaller than what you would think. Like, there's some of these, the bigger James Stewart jumps that you see in those videos of James Stewart whipping it all the way around sideways, all the way around backwards, shit like that. I feel like some of these jumps are like 20 to 25% smaller than what you would think they would be. I think it would have been cool if on some of those, just like one or two of the bigger the bigger, more famous jumps of this James Stewart compound, I think he could have made the landings and the jump just a little bit bigger. Even that one right there, you know, I feel like that could have been just a little bit bigger, give it a little bit more of that fun factor versus being just kind of a medium, little chill kind of jump. I mean, it feels somewhat bigger, but not really. You know, it's kind of missing a little bit of that big jump feel to it where you can just whip it all the way around backwards, thug nasty fatty. Kind of missing that a little bit. Not airsoft fatty, thug nasty fatty. Okay, boys, get it right. But all the replication, like the buildings off in the distance, that whole little area over there, all those buildings, pretty good. You know, I wouldn't say like perfect, but pretty good, decent enough to where it gives you kind of the feel like you're on the actual real life James Stewart compound. Like that right there, good God, look at how fucking far I'm over jumping that. So some of the jumps can kind of have the vibe like they're just a little bit too small, just a little bit too cramped down. And even like through some of these sections, it's kind of like it doesn't capture that, you know how the Sandwick track is on Reflex, right? How that's like that sandy big berm. You got all that, the real sand filling movable dirt. This almost feels more like a normal dirt than it does like a loam sand mix, like what you know of on the real life James Stewart compound. So he kind of, like I say, he kind of misses a little bit of that. It has a little bit of it. I'm not going to sit there and say it doesn't feel at all like loam, because it does, but I just think a little bit more of that could have been done. Some of these berms could have been made a little bit bigger, more like sandy berms, you know what I mean? This jump right here, like I'm barely even gassing it. Like I slide out in the corner and then just barely gas it up that tabletop and I'm clearing it just fine. Like, I don't know. I feel like some of these jump faces should have been a little bit more peak you, toss you up in the air, and the landing should have been a little bit further out on some of these bigger jumps, and it just would have made it a little more fun, a little more of that James Stewart compound epic track feel. That's kind of like what it's all about, you know. Even in a live, that's like basically the biggest jumps in that entire game. And with MX Simulator, some of those jumps are huge on the James Stewart compound, and it doesn't feel out of place. You know, it doesn't feel like, oh, these jumps are way too big, like this is just unrealistic. It doesn't feel like that on a James Stewart compound because it's kind of known for that, having some of those bigger jumps and shit, you know what I mean? So we can get some Stewie scrubs off of this boy. Oh, some of these are kind of hard to do that on, but like this jump right here, I mean, Jesus Christ, look at how far you over jump that. I'm like barely on the gas. You know what I mean? Like I'm over jumping that landing by 50 feet and I'm like halfway on the throttle. It's like, shit, dog. I don't know. I don't know if it was like he ran into some issues trying to get the replication part a little bit. You know, sometimes it's hard to get those layouts proper when you're trying to get everything lined up and then like it doesn't all fit together, so then you have to make this jump smaller than you wanted to, or you have to make that corner tighter than you actually really wanted to make everything fit together properly. Sometimes that does happen, so I do understand that can happen, but overall, I mean, I know I'm kind of going on a couple little nitpicky things about it, but overall it's not terrible. It's awesome to see this in Reflex. You know, don't let me make it seem like it's all terrible or it's just such a bad track. It's not a bad track at all. It's not a bad track. It's just for a James Stewart compound, you know, it's kind of got to live up to a certain hype, a certain standard for a James Stewart compound in a motocross game. And so that's kind of what I'm comparing it to. Like if you just consider this a normal track, a normal custom track on Reflex, it'd be a pretty fucking solid ass track. You know, it wouldn't be a bad track at all. But when you start comparing it to a James Stewart replica compound track, that's when you can start becoming a little bit more nitpicky with it and shit, you know? That's when it starts becoming a little bit more like that with everything. So, rocking the James Stewart default rider on Reflex, that Red Bull helmet. What's up, dog? And this jump right here, I mean, I don't know. I just felt like that landing would have came out like another 20 feet or something. Like this right here, felt like that would have popped you up a little bit more, and that landing would have went out another 30, 40 feet. Like that have made it so much more like fun, so much more big, epic scale size fun. Now, but all these other smaller jumps, like these medium-sized ones, like this right here, those really aren't too bad because those aren't really known for being big jumps on the normal Stewart compound in real life, right? And some of these like little jumps, little scrub jumps down through here, they're not even really known for that. So they don't even really need to be any bigger. You know what I'm saying? But some of those bigger ones, I feel like they're just a little bit lackluster in comparison to what we have seen on some other Stewart compounds and what you would think like some of those jumps would be like in real life, right? It's almost like he tried to get them 1-to-1 scale versus being a little bit more that fun factor, right? It's almost like he kind of went down more of that route. Like this right here, hell to the fucking yes. like that's badass. You know, that's about the size I would have expected some of these bigger tabletops to have felt in the game. Like what this little freestyle ramp to the other jump is, that's what I would have expected at least one or two of the jumps on this track. Maybe not pop you up quite this much, but still, like, think about how badass that would have been if some of the standard bigger dirt jumps would have felt like that on this track. That'd have been so fucking cool, dude. You'd have felt like you were really like popping up in the air, really jumping up in the air. And in real life, I can guarantee you go hit some of those monster-ass tabletops or monster-ass doubles on the real-life James Stewart compound when it's not toned down for the little amateurs that come out there. You're going to be shitting in your pants. I mean, them jumps ain't no joke, especially back in the days like 09 when you saw Stewart do that whole shootout shit on the Yamaha where he's doing them big-ass whips. Some of them jumps are fucking huge. And it just doesn't really capture that quite as much as I might would have thought. So either way, but other than that, decal's pretty cool. You know, the tree placement's pretty good. All the little off-track stuff. Skybox is pretty good. I don't know why it has a bit of a, like, blurry little... I don't know what that blur effect is on everything. The skybox not quite as clear as I might would have thought it would have been. But either way. Okay, so let's... now, as far as some of the inside ruts and roughness, like I said, I kind of talked about the roughness, but the inside ruts and the ruts and stuff, they're like medium to small size. So, you know, kind of the way it is on some of that. Okay, so let's move on to this first Supercross track over here. This one of the ones that is on the live replica. Pretty famous. A lot of people know this replica Supercross track. Okay, so why is this not red clay? I'm a little confused right here. I think you missed out big time on this one in particular by not making it more of the red clay vibe. It's just like this standard dirt, and it almost has the same sort of decal dirt look as the other Supercross track on the compound. And you know how different they look on a live and how different they look in real life. Like, you know, you got the one Supercross track that's like super red clay dirt vibe, this one over here, and then you got the other one that's more of a standardy kind of white sand type Supercrossy vibe to it. So let me just say this about the Supercross tracks on this compound. They kind of feel like an afterthought. They really do. Like this is one of those things you're not going to be very impressed with on this replica compound right here. Just these Supercross tracks, I don't know what it is. Like just the decal itself and the on-track dirt is so basic and Play-Doh looking. It kind of makes it feel weird. I don't know. And not just that, but the design of it too. You kind of feel like you're on this weird, super washed out Supercross track that like nobody's rode on in a decade. Kind of has this weird, like close together jump, cramped down scaling. I mean, that section's not too bad, I don't guess. The whoops kind of feel weird, like the starter whoop is the same size as the rest of the whoops. What's going on there, Nick DeLeon? That starter whoop is supposed to be about half the size of the rest of those whoops so it can get you up on it. Whereas this kind of has the vibe like you're hitting that first whoop and jumping into the whoops, and then you're like doing this whole weird jump thing, and the whoops are, I don't even know how to explain it. They're just really bizarre feeling in this game. Like these whole, look how close these jumps are together. And they're like rolled together. It's really, I don't know. I don't know what to think about the Supercross tracks of this compound. Certainly, this is way more of like the motocross portion of it's what you're going to find more of the fun out of on this, not the little replica Supercross tracks. Okay, so this is that other Supercross track right here, the same exact dirt as the other one that's supposed to be red clay. Little bizarre, but whatever. So super tight ass corners, as you guys know. But like, I don't know. I just feel like the scaling, I don't know what if he couldn't make it any bigger scaling because then it would be running into the other side of the motocross track, so then he had to make it all smaller scaling. See, there's a lot of times with replica tracks and stuff like this, you'll make one part of it, and then what it does is it restricts you on another part of it because it won't fit. So maybe he didn't want to make it this cramped down, but he had to make everything fit together. That's certainly possible. I don't know. But all I'm saying is it is what it is, as far as you feel like you're kind of riding on this really small, the most cramped down you could possibly make a custom supercross track in Reflex, literally. I don't know how you can make it any more like cramped down scaling-wise and shortness of jumps and that whole sort of vibe. I don't know how you could do it any more than this. So either way, just a little, I don't know, wasn't quite as impressed on these two supercross tracks on it. Certainly think it could have been way more effort could have been done on these in particular. It just kind of seemed like let's throw that in as filler to make sure we have the supercross tracks, but the main focus is the national track. That's kind of what it feels like he was doing with all this. So either way, in the grand scope scale scheme, not god-awful, not amazing, cool to see it. I would really love to see like a updated version of this, like a better version of all of this. That would be badass. A little bit more work put in, a little bit more TLC on some of this shit. Make that roughness kind of vibe and flow with everything. Give it a slightly more sandy, loamy feel to the national track. Make some of those bigger jumps a little bit bigger, a little bit longer. Give that just a little bit more fun factor. Slightly more peak on those bigger jumps on the national track. But other than that, not terrible. Just, I don't know. I guess I've just rode on so many different like Reflex and MX Simulator and a live Stewart compound replica track that it's just kind of like this one just doesn't quite live up to the sort of expectation that those create. Like that 2015 Stewart replica track on Simulator, the live replica track, and even that. I guess there's been a couple more. I don't really know. I kind of get confused on which ones they have made, which ones haven't been made, and stuff like that, because there's been so many of them. But even that jump right there, I don't know. Just little cramped down type vibe feel to it. Just think there could have been a little bit more done here and there on the track to give it a little bit more of a feel. But either way, I don't know. Definitely let me know down in the comments what you guys think. And then, of course, everybody's got to jizz their pants anytime there's a James Stewart compound, period. So, of course, I'm probably going to get some hate just from saying anything negative about it. But let me just say this. When you talk about, like, an overall rating, I'd probably give this like a 8 overall. I'm certainly not saying it's like a bad track or anything like that. I just think for being a Stewart compound, it's just off, kind of 2 ticks off from being that like amazing Reflex custom replica Stewart compound type track in the game. Just kind of 2 ticks off, more of like a 7 or 8 overall top vibe, 7.5, something like that. That's basically where I would put it, right? So either way, that's kind of where I'm at on it. Way better than an average like 5 track on Reflex custom tracks. Way better than that, certainly better than that. But other than that, there you go, man. That's it. So I'd say the difficulty on it, maybe medium, because it does have a lot of that little choppy ass roughness, like you're on a Blue Groove drive. I don't know. It does have a little bit of that. So I guess you could say medium difficulty. But other than that, that's about it for this Stewie compound. It's cool. I mean, if you've played Reflex, it'd be cool to come in here, download it, just to ride on it, just to see what it feels like. And in a game that's, a decade old, it's pretty cool to come in here and still be able to ride on like a new Stewart compound vibe track. That is cool. So certainly recommend it as far as coming in here and checking it out and all of that. But is this going to be one of those like end-all, be-all videos still being made on this track like a decade later? I just don't think it's to that like epic Stewart compound scale, right? It's got the workings and the base to be that, but it's just not quite to that level, in my opinion. It's just not quite to that epic Stewart like what you have in Alive and in the 15 Stewart compound and MX Simulator, right? It just doesn't really meet that sort of expectation as much as I would have wanted it to. Or have expected it to, you know. It's certainly one of those things you got to make an epic track if you want to live up to that Stewart compound type vibe in these games. You know, you got to make it an above and beyond track if you want it to really live up to that. And this is an okay track just in general, but as far as a Stewart compound track, it's down a tick or two, you know. It's just not quite to that epic level. So either way, appreciate you guys watching all the videos. Later, dudes.